The Splinter Cell franchise was one heck of a stealth series that, besides Metal Gear, got to make players feel like a badass spy ninja, letting them take on the role of the covert operative Sam Fisher and his ability to blend in with the dark, utilize high-tech weapons, and make conversation with the enemy.
Where did you take John?
I don't know what you're talking about.
He's not answering. Should I kill him?
Negative.
All right. They say I should kill you, so...
Wait!
But while the future of the franchise will forever remain in the dark until the remake either brings the series back from the dead or bury it in the ground further, that's up to Ubisoft to decide, the older titles will always be remembered as the games that helped evolve the stealth genre as a whole. And one of the best, which just turned 20 and can now legally date your kids in college, is Splinter Cell Chaos Theory. Released back in late March of 2005, and the third game in the franchise, Chaos Theory is often considered to be the best in terms of its refinement of the Splinter Cell mechanics. Things like Sam's sneaking kit being stronger than ever, smarter and more reactive enemy AI, for the most part.
Lost radio contact, and they've confirmed that there's major damage. They expect that the debris
and more realistic shadows that push the boundaries of what video game graphics are capable of. An amazing title that a lot of old-timey stealth fans think fondly of. But with 20 years gone by, how does the game feel like to play today? With more modern games like Dishonored or Hitman leading the charge on the non-linear approach to player-driven stealth, is the more classical, sometimes linear approach still fun to play?
Are you gonna say monkey?
Chaos Theory is a tale of tactical military espionage that the Tom Clancy IP is often known for, as well as the best marketing tool to make Ubisoft's military games sound cool. You play as Sam Fisher, a highly trained covert operative that works for a division of the National Security Agency known as Third Echelon. The premise involves the rising tension between North Korea, South Korea, China, and Japan due to the creation of a united defense force among Japanese forces, which is supposedly a violation of World War II treaties. In light of this escalation, North America is sent to intervene on behalf of Japan, which also extends to Sam and his team being tasked to determine any information pertaining to the rising conflict. Ultimately, this results in Third Echelon discovering a paper trail that leads to a number of entities working behind the scenes to incite another world war, with the speculation that a new era of peace can be achieved with, hold your butts for just a second, Chaos Theory. And so it's up to the team, and Sam's extremely gruff voice, to prevent that from happening.
What you working on?
It's as tactical espionage as it can get, and makes for a pretty decent story out of something from the early 2000s, where fictional military writing tended to involve the backdrop of a post-World War II/Cold War era. It even has the 2000s era trying to be cool vibe. Very military thriller, and you'll be globetrotting around the world, infiltrating locations while bantering with your team through an earpiece. So be prepared to only really see Sam's face and his ability to look directly into your soul. Banter is the main narrative of the game, and Sam interacting with his team and how he handles the missions are the story points that drive the plot. Nothing too dramatic or over the top, but the range of conversations that gravitate between mission serious and sarcastic humor are what makes the Third Echelon cast a fun sort.
I'm hearing gunfire down there, Fisher. Everything all right?
It's coming from up ahead, but Lambert, when I think gorilla, I think Kalashnikov.
What do you mean?
I've had enough AKs fired at me in my time to tell you that wasn't one.
All right.
Maria Narcissa.
You're not trying to set me up on another blind date, I hope.
The Maria Narcissa is a boat.
So was the last girl you set me up with.
Fisher.
The fuck? It's a good bit of character narrative that makes the main cast likable. Very Mission Impossible-esque in terms of team capability and camaraderie. Looking back at it, it's actually more humorous than I remembered it to be, and this also extends to the way that Sam conducts himself on the battlefield. For real though, it's like every time Sam interrogates an enemy, 90% of them default to pissing themselves to a confession.
Talk, but talk quietly.
I'll tell you anything. I'm the biggest coward you've ever met.
That's quite a claim.
I've already wet myself.
Well, then you've made the top 10.
Outside of the team, you won't have that much in terms of antagonists that appear throughout the story, and it's more focused on keeping them in the shadows. When they do appear, they'll have their 1 or 10 minutes of fame before they actually go, either to the next mission or through Sam's knife. A bit underwhelming in terms of a villain narrative, but in fairness, it's the consequences of their actions that have the greater story impact. Considering the emphasis on military technology and information warfare, I actually found the era in which the game handles its world building to still be quite entertaining, especially now that we're a little less than 20 years ahead of when the game takes place. Oh Christ, that makes me feel old. A time when broadband DSL internet was still a norm.
We're supposed to check the DSL connections. Make sure there's no interference.
Good luck to you Gen Zs out there. And wireless communication becoming prevalent enough that Sam started making dad jokes.
Yep, welcome to the Wi-Fi era.
Remember, you're saying that to a guy from the era of hi-fi.
Hi-Fi? As in like high in fiber?
Hey, come on, Grims. It sucks when you're in the bathroom for hours. It's an interesting retrospective look at how real-world technology shaped the fictional world of Chaos Theory. A very trying to be cool military espionage thriller, and it's pretty easy to follow. It doesn't have quite the layers of something like Metal Gear, though I doubt anyone will want to top Kojima's 4D level of thinking, nor does it have the overtly serious action tones of something like Call of Duty, but it's simple, serious, fun, and surprisingly humorous that anyone with a bit of interest can enjoy. The Third Echelon crew are a definite highlight. Also, since this is the third game in the franchise, you actually don't need to know the story of the first two in order to get through this one. But it is fun to see how Sam's personality evolved from the first two games. Just good luck finding Pandora tomorrow.
Oh, you think darkness is your ally?
Stealth is the key gameplay factor in Chaos Theory, and it's as traditional as can get with how it handles it. Sam will primarily go through each level doing his best to not be seen or heard, while also using both his equipment and the environment to be as sneaky as possible. The more traditional side of things stems from the fact that you have to use the darkness and shadows of each level to become a ninja.
I know it! I know there were ninjas here!
What?
And it's your key mechanic to bypass enemies. While the sense of realism is a bit lost on the fact that you're near undetectable in the dark, seriously, nobody here notices the 3 glowing dots? It still makes for some fun and creative gameplay with how you use it, like sneaking past enemies or setting up an ambush with a distraction. Sound is the other traditional element used in the game, and an important one to determine the level of movement and actions that Sam can perform. How loud you are in relation to the environment affects how well enemies detect you. Moving slow will help you get close to enemies, but the moment you do the gorilla jog, enemies will instantly be aware of your presence. They even give you an indicator of how much sound is heard in the environment, alongside a base level of the enemy's hearing. As far as every stealth game that I've gotten to experience, I think Chaos Theory has the most intricate system out of all of them, though shout out if there's something more complicated that I'm missing. It's a bit of a challenge because of how much you have to manage your loudness and visibility, and the game can be pretty strict if you're just slightly off at times. Not to mention the lack of any guides like a radar or X-ray sonar to help you find enemies. But despite that, I do like the quote-unquote stricter gameplay because it does force you to play the most absolute form of stealth. Very much influenced by the Thief series with its use of shadows and even Metal Gear as well, allowing you to use enemies as human shields, perform interrogations, take cover on a wall, as well as CQC. How can he slap? Actually, now that I'm playing this game again, I do kind of think of it as the in-between Metal Gear and Thief, since a lot of their elements kind of overlap. But since Sam isn't a Taffer or the result of some genomic experiment to create the perfect super soldier, he gets to be one smooth operator, with his access to a number of weapons and gadgets to help make his stealthing more manageable and fun. He has a silenced pistol to take out enemies from afar, but it also has an EMP-like secondary fire that can temporarily disable gadgets and even lights. It's pretty cool actually, and draws less attention than having to disable things with bullets. Doesn't really work on enemies though, but bullets will disable them perfectly.
Jesus!
Sam also gets a silenced assault rifle that can go full auto should the need arise, but also comes with some cool attachments like a long-range taser, a non-lethal beanbag that can knock out some poor fools, kinda funny to look at too, a gas grenade that can knock out a crowd of people, and a spy camera to look even more like James Bond. You also get smoke grenades to block visibility, light mode grenades to blind enemies, and actual grenades to go boom.
Fisher, watch the alarm!
Last but not least, Sam has his iconic multi-vision goggles that has night vision, thermal, and EMF, that lets him see better in the dark, as well as distinguish heat and electronic sources. A very thematic military kit that I found to be quite useful in a lot of different situations where needed, and it definitely helped the more linear approach to stealthing. While Sam kind of has the arsenal to go guns blazing, his lowered accuracy, high recoil fire on his guns, and his pretty low health pool honestly deters you from going full Rambo. Oh wait, wrong game. I think I tried it once on a full squad that was firing back, but it really just didn't feel good to shoot. While it kind of sucks that you don't get the option to just go ham, I kind of like it this way because it emphasizes how much stealth is what the game is all about. But not all the mechanics are sunshine and rainbows. Actually, I'm pretty sure Sam doesn't need those. Controls somehow feel like the most interesting yet convoluted set for keyboard and mouse. There's a few weird things like how your aiming of weapons is a toggle on the keyboard, or that your jump button is not tied to your spacebar. But that's all fixable thanks to the customizable keybinds. The weirdest mechanic is how your movement speed is tied to your mouse wheel. Because the game has 4 levels of movement, all of which differ in speed and level of noise, the mouse wheel, while I think it's extremely weird, is somehow the best case scenario to control it. I tried using anything else on my keyboard, my mouse, or even my hired help. Faster!
I'm hitting the button, you idiot!
Slower,
I'm hitting the button!
Faster!
What do you want? I'm hitting the
Slower.
button! I'm hitting the button!
But the mouse wheel works best because you can quickly switch speeds on a dime. Since I've never played Chaos Theory on console, I'm going to assume it's probably best on a controller because the thumbstick has the better fidelity with speed control. I've always preferred using an analog stick to move for stealth because it always felt more natural and sometimes even tense with how fast you can go. But the mouse wheel method, despite how awkward it feels at first, is the best emulation that you can get on mouse and keyboard. I was able to get used to it pretty quickly, but I wouldn't fault you if it's not to your liking. It also kinda sucks that the Steam version of this game has no built-in controller support, so unless you customize the layout yourself on Steam, you're stuck with a keyboard and mouse. Unless maybe there's some kind of unofficial patch? ? I think the only major design point of the game that may not hold up well for some are in fact the levels. While I do enjoy trying to be creative with making use of Sam's arsenal to get through each section of Chaos Theory, their linearity makes the gameplay approach feel less varied. Often, there's only one pathway in certain levels that you can take, and you'll have to use whatever kit seems best to get through them. Some levels also just lack a lot of alternative routes for you to use. It'll feel a bit disappointing for some, especially when you've come from games like Dishonored or Hitman. Game-wise, everything seemed to run perfectly fine without any major glitches, except on the occasion where enemies suddenly become alerted out of nowhere. A bit annoying, but thank goodness, PC players can continue to enjoy their God-given right to quick save and quick load.
Damn right.
A very specific gameplay focus with some linear level design that will force you to play the game in the stealthiest way possible. Some may find it a bit restrictive and lacking a bit of variety, but if you can adjust to Chaos Theory's design, there's a lot of fun to still be had with this older game. Also, side note, if you want to play this game without relying on quick saving and quick loading, best of luck to you, because the moment that you die, you have to restart the mission all over again.
Darknesses!
Chaos Theory's 2005 graphics are obviously old, but there's still some decent standouts, particularly with how the game handles its shadows and lighting. The texture modeling on the characters look pretty okay, and you can at least tell that they're human beings, but the details on them are pretty hideous. But it can't be that bad, Rao. Oh my god, get this thing away! Sam looks a lot better by comparison, but again, just ignore the fact that his eyes can stare into your soul. The same could be said about the environment. The levels and some of the background details tend to look very blocky, and they lack a lot of detailed geometry to make them look more defined. But where there is darkness, there is also light to be had with the presentation, and the highlight of this game is the darkness. For 2005, Chaos Theory was without a doubt the biggest graphical standout thanks to its shaders. The illuminated sources of the environment and the way shadows are cast is still quite cool to see. Granted, a lot of the levels in Chaos Theory are just as dark as my future, but when the light sources do illuminate and cast over objects and people, it's still impressive to see after 20 years. Plus, it kinda has to be impressive since the shadows are a core part of gameplay features.
Yeah, you must be a ninja. How else could you sneak up and grab me like that?
The sound effects also play an important role. I'd say for nearly 80% of the game, you'll mostly be stuck with ambient sounds in order to hear the details in the environment to determine how loud you can be. It's really good and immersive for replicating a modern real world, and you can identify and pinpoint different sound sources whenever you're going through a level.
From my garage. Imagine it. You pull up in your car at night, and the driveway lights up automatically.
Ha! You're crazy.
For the music, while it's not as constant as the ambience of the game, it's used to very dramatic effect for specific situations. Most notable are when the guards are alerted to your position, and when you're sometimes spotted.
What's going on with the lights here?
A good effect with raising tension, and very similar to Metal Gear's use of an alert theme. There's also a few occasions where music will play in the background just out of pure ambience. I don't exactly know what the trigger is for some of these scenes, but they were nice in creating a mood break from some of the pure ambient noises. Very funky and techno is how I would describe them, and probably used to give Sam an even cooler vibe. There's also some fun in-game radio music that is undeniably out of the early 2000s. Voice acting ranges from pretty bad to great. The third echelon team have it best, probably because they are the main cast, but their banter with Sam during missions, as well as their presence during debriefing, sound dramatically formal, serious, and funny.
Hostage rescue isn't normally our bag, but Morgenholt was part of Project Watson, the UN committee that studied Philip Mass's handiwork after Georgia.
I get you, Will.
Looks like this battery has repair and maintenance capability for mechanized warfare support. Any shipping or repair logs you can recover would be a big help.
I'll find what I can.
Sam is without a doubt the most iconic, thanks to his, I would like to describe as, hard-boiled voice from one Michael Ironside.
I already don't like you. Don't make it worse for yourself.
Who are you?
Shut up.
On the pretty bad side, though, are the enemies, particularly with some of the accents. The ones who are supposed to have Latin accents seem okay and barely passable.
Hi there. You look important.
I am loyal. You will get no information from me.
But the Asian accents are just flat out terrible. This is supposed to be a broken Korean accent,
Do not compare me to a cowardly American Marine.
and this is supposed to be a broken Japanese accent.
Some men have been moved around, guarding inside. A captain was here earlier getting volunteers.
It's pretty bad, and it only gets worse and worse the more I hear it. While it's an older title with a few things that have aged horribly, Chaos Theory is still impressive for something out of 2005, especially with the way it handles its lighting and shading to really impress graphically.
You didn't see anything.
Honestly, there are things that I miss and don't miss about some of the more classical formulas from older stealth games. One of my favorites being the linear all-in stealth approach while narrowly avoiding enemies at razor's edge. Plus, the older games just make things feel less convenient and handholdy, which I find to be a fun challenge. But on the other hand, I do like the more quote-unquote modern conveniences that games like Dishonored or even Hitman did, where you have the more freeform option to go about a map and handle your target the way you want, or that there's less trial and error with how stealthing feels. Chaos Theory's age does make it borderline on whether its linear approach will be something that you like. I do enjoy it actually, especially when I've gotten used to games where the level design lets you take so many different approaches to stealth, and instead trying to figure out the more compact approach using Sam's arsenal, environmentals, and of course the shadows in Chaos Theory is fun in its own right. But for those who favor the much more open and not so restrictive approach to stealth, then Chaos Theory will not hold up in that regard. As for the future, We'll just have to wait and see whether the remake will make Splinter Cell have an impact again. But that's gonna do it for today, guys. Thanks for sticking around. There will be more games to play and more videos coming soon, so please stay tuned if you'd like to see more. But for now, I'll see you all next time.